Welcome to Chapter Chronicles. Subscribe for manga recaps. God posed the question, if you could have endless wealth in this world, but the price was being chased by a snail, would you agree? Well, the snail could only crawl 8.5 meters in an hour, while a person could walk 5 kilometers in an hour. The difference was too great. The male protagonist agreed without hesitation, thinking that he could become the world's richest person. Hire a demon king as a bodyguard and a fairy as a wife. His heart was overjoyed at the thought. However, that night, a dark figure broke into his house, leaving him stunned. He stuttered and asked the girl what she wanted. The girl's eyes were cold and disdainful, saying that she was there to kill her target. Then she swung her big sickle toward him. Fortunately, he quickly ducked and avoided the attack. The gold coins in the treasure chest behind him fell to the ground, but the girl did not even glance at them. Her eyes grew darker. At this moment, the male protagonist suddenly realized something. He swallowed hard and shouted, "The snail has become a human!" Then, he turned and ran away. However, the girl remained still and did not move. Since then, at midnight she would appear next to the male protagonist without fail, whether he had fled to a deserted wilderness, jumped into icy water, or hidden in a chicken coop in a house. She would always find him and chase him, slowly lifting her sickle and slashing down toward him, leaving him exhausted and crying as he ran away. This day, the male protagonist arrived at the legendary Goblin King's castle, and just looking at it, he could feel the chilling aura. He thought that once he has entered inside, that snail would not be able to chase after him anymore. As he was pondering how to get in, he heard 2 goblins at the entrance shouting at him. "Hey, you there! Get out of here! This is not the place for you. If you don't leave, we'll catch you." The male protagonist thought to himself, "This is my chance to get in," and immediately put on a provocative expression. He even patted his own butt and said, "I'm not leaving unless you catch me. You little trash goblins can eat shit." Upon hearing this, the goblins on the other side were enraged. The next second, he successfully entered the goblin's dungeon. Inside the castle's prison, the male protagonist wrote in his diary, "I regret it. I really regret it. There's no such thing as a free lunch. I just didn't expect the price of this pie to be so heavy. Fate has already set a price for everything in the dark. Stay away from snails." Just then, the girl in the neighboring cell saw his weird behavior and couldn't help but ask. The male protagonist, named Isso, slowly put away his diary and said, "Nothing much. I'm just writing my farewell letter. Is there something you need, Miss Nona?" Nona looked puzzled and asked, "If so, why are you laughing?" She suddenly burst into tears and repeated, "How could you be laughing writing your farewell letter?" Isso smiled and comforted her. "Why be so gloomy? Isn't this place nice?" Nona looked at Isso in disbelief and shouted, "You said this place is good? This is the castle of the Goblin King, one of the strongest in the kingdom. They have been stationed here for years and are heavily guarded with countless traps and puppets. Even the holy knights of the kingdom may not be able to take it. I heard that a duke led a large army to attack here to rescue his daughter who was kidnapped, but they were all wiped out by the unbeatable Goblin King." Isso brightens up thinking, if the Goblin King is really that strong, then even that guy can't make it here alive. While Nona, feeling hopeless, burst out into tears again. She thought that her father had not come and rescued her yet, and that the number of humans in prison was slowly decreasing. Maybe she should write a farewell message too. She asked Isso if she could borrow a paper and pen, but Isso refused, explaining that his notebook paper was specially made and not easy to tear. Nona begged him, if so, "Could you just give me the whole book?" But Isso refused, saying it was his diary, and who in the right mind would give their daily to someone else? Nona got angry. "I won't look at your daily. Come on, don't be such a stingy, give me your book." But Isso didn't budge. Nona threatened to bite him and stuck her head over. However, just as she tried to push her head back, she suddenly realized the seriousness of the situation. Isso and Nona looked at each other, and Nona, who had no choice, was extremely resentful and tearful, begging, Don't just look, come and help me. I'm stuck and can't move. This scene made Isso burst out of laughter. Looking at the pitiful appearance of the Nona, Isso reached out and pressed her head, preparing to push her out. Just then, a loud bang was heard, and a sense of unease slowly crept up on him as the entire dungeon began to shake. She's here, and no matter where I am, she'll come for me at midnight without fail, very dedicated, to take my life. Later, a black figure holding a sickle appeared on the corridor. The snail slowly walked up to Isso while carrying the head of the Goblin King. Her eyes, as emotionless as ever, looked at Isso. With a loud bang, the wall was smashed open, and the snail, carrying its sickle, approached Isso. The snail raised the sickle, ready to strike. Seeing this, Isso immediately knelt down and begged for mercy at her feet. This time it was really dangerous. Despite his pitiful plea, the snail swung her sickle mercilessly. Nona, who was watching from the side, thought she was going to die soon and burst into tears. This successfully attracted the snail's attention. Isso seized the opportunity and took out a smoke bomb from his backpack, throwing it to the ground, and saying, "Sorry, Miss Snail. You can't kill me this time, but definitely next time." Thick smoke billowed out instantly. Isso grabbed Nona and leaped into the air, with a parachute opening behind them. The snail looked up at Isso, who was escaping, and then turned its anger towards the head of the Goblin King, giving it a kick, wishing it could crush Isso to death. At the same time, beneath the castle, pairs of big eyes stared tightly at the door. Mr. Conde, who was beside them, couldn't stand it anymore and shouted angrily, "Quickly attack! It's already past midnight!" The leader acknowledged, and just as he gave the order to attack, when there was a loud noise from the castle on the cliff. A figure fell from the sky with a loud bang, landing safely on the ground. It was Isso. As he was wondering what to do next, he suddenly noticed many people surrounding him. Before he could ask any questions, an old man yelled at him to put down his daughter. It turned out that the girl was the old man's daughter. Isso patted her on the butt and told her, "Your dad is here." Seeing her father, Nona, who had just landed, slowly turned her head and burst into tears, saying, "Daddy," before passing out. The old man immediately grabbed Isso and said he was going to kill him. Just as he finished speaking, a large head fell to the ground. Isso was disappointed and said, "I really misjudged you, you useless guy." This action made everyone in the audience shudder. Nona's father immediately put on a different expression and approached, saying, "You are really amazing. You actually killed the Goblin King. By the way, may I ask if my daughter's bottom feels good? If it does, please don't hesitate to take it as a reward." This speech also left Isso stunned in place. Later, they went to Nona's home together, and Isso couldn't help but caress his head and grit his teeth, wondering why the Goblin King couldn't take down that snail. Outside the door, the father and daughter were eavesdropping on Isso. The daughter asked her father in confusion, "What's wrong with Mr. Isso? He sounds very angry." The father pursed his lips and said with understanding, "This is probably what they call a legendary figure with some peculiarities. Let's go back to our room to discuss more." After putting down his teacup, he continued, "I used to think he was just an unknown hero, and even considered inviting him under our wing. But fortunately, I was cautious enough to research him beforehand, and the results surprised me. Mr. Isso actually has a famous nickname, the Lone Hero." Seeing his daughter's incredulous expression, the father added, "Don't doubt my intelligence. I've never been wrong before. Moreover, Mr. Isso did indeed earn this nickname through his deeds. Let me tell you a secret. Do you think this is the first time he has done something like this? Absolutely not. He used to sneak into demon dens alone, not just once, but several times, in order to eliminate those dangerous creatures. His courage and spirit are extraordinary, just like the glorious years of my youth." Nona was not impressed and joked, "So that's why he's so happy to be in prison." Father didn't seem to hear the interruption and continued, "Anyway, there are many true and false rumors about Mr. Isso, but the things that can be confirmed are probably true. Mr. Isso always carries a notebook with him and records the names of those vicious monsters on it. Whenever he defeats a monster, he will cross out its name from the notebook. While Isso is now thinking angrily, I thought that the Trash Goblin King would be my savior, but he couldn't even defeat a snail. Number 2, Mr. Isso has a laser gliding umbrella. After he successfully defeats a monster, he will use it to quickly escape the scene and hide. Isso looks at his own gliding umbrella and says with a reliable expression, "It has to be you, the number 1 escape artist. Otherwise, I would have been killed by that snail 1,000 times." Number 3, many people have had the fortune of passing by when Mr. Isso is in battle. They all heard him shouting, "Save me!" At first, no one knew why he was shouting, but later they realized that he didn't want to be immersed in the killing. He longed for love and peace in his heart, and hoped that someone could come to save him. Isso lay on the table, his mind in chaos, thinking, "Save me, please, who can save me? Help me kill her, please." Nona had been successfully brainwashed by her father, and was deeply moved. Her father continued, "Lastly, it's what I admire most about him. Even though Mr. Isso doesn't like fighting, or even hates it, he often feels extremely tired after every battle. But he never rests, and immediately throws himself into the next battle to save more humans. He is a lone hero, who will never stop fighting demons in this world." Desperate, Isso lay on the sofa, his heart shouting, "Why do you always come to kill me on time? Let me rest for a while. I am really tired. You won't even let me rest during the holidays. It's too much." Father's speech has reached its climax. "This is our great Mr. Isso. You are my God." As soon as the words fell, Nona burst into tears and said that she wanted to marry him. Her words hit her father's soul, leaving him stunned. What's going on here? Since that day, Nona has become Isso's little fangirl, often bringing him various sweets or nourishing soup. Seeing this, he is speechless. However, at this moment, he has no time to deal with her and is still anxious about the escape plan that hasn't been planned yet. It's all because in 6 days is the time when the snail will continue to chase and kill him. As Isso was thinking about how to escape, Nona in front of him was already fantasizing about the beautiful life they could have together. Then she grabbed her face and started blushing. Isso was speechless and tried to escape by saying I needed to go outside to clear my mind. As we all know, people in love are not very bright in their minds. When Nona heard this, she automatically translated it in her mind as date, and she was ready to go with joy, obediently following behind Isso. Then she approached Isso naturally and asked where he wanted to go. However, what Nona didn't expect was that Isso immediately replied that he wanted to go back to the alchemy workshop. Nona was thunderstruck. This was completely different from the script she had written. Shocked, Nona unconsciously followed Isso to the workshop. Here is the glorious city, the biggest and best alchemy workshop. When the clerk asked what they wanted to do, Isso took out a blueprint and handed over the money, wanting to make a set of laser puppets. But to Isso's surprise, the clerk refused directly. Nona couldn't believe that Isso would make such a rookie mistake. A laser puppet is an ordinary item that can be made by any craftsman. How could a noble alchemist take on such a task and degrade himself? As the daughter of the major shareholder of this workshop, it's time for Nona to step in. But then, Isso made a move that shocked everyone. He pulled out a bag full of gold coins and threw it on the table. Nona was frightened by this, thinking that Isso didn't know that using money to deal with noble alchemists is like trampling on their dignity. This was bad. Just as the clerk shouted at Isso for insulting his dignity, Isso didn't say a word but threw out another bag, another, and another. Isso smashed several bags of gold coins on the table. The clerk seemed to be drowned in the money. At that moment, his master next to him slammed the table and freed him from the illusion. He said that it was enough, and as a respected customer, he would take on the job. Nona was stunned, deeply shocked by the power of money.